My research presentation is Evolution of the Immune System in Vertebrates. My thesis statement consists in proof how evolution works in the immune system in vertebrates. Evolution in vertebrates needed to improve from their innate immune system to an adaptive. Adaptive immune system provides somatic variation of antigen receptors and strategies for defense. Coevolution and microorganisms evolved to attack the first line of mucosal barrier. Coevolution in the immune system evolved receptors to recognize foreign microorganisms. The evolution immune system consists in developing new strategies to defend it from pathogens microorganisms. Through natural selection, let morphological change to occur in organisms in order to survive. Mutation outcomes are specific behavior and physical traits which increase in fitness. The immune system is divided into two. The innate immune system produces receptors that trigger response to pathogens invasion, and the adaptive immune system consists of antigens, receptor genes, cell surface receptors, and the production of antibodies that destroy the pathogen or prevent the damaging of cells. In the image, we can observe the divergence between the innate immunity and the adaptive immunity. In the innate immunity, they are simple organisms, and the adaptive immunity, they are organisms more complex, with jaw and bony skeleton. Those vertebrates were facing new challenges as new diseases and pathogens. They need to evolve to an adaptive immunity to be able to survive to the new challenges. The immune system is the first line of defense and is called innate defense, also known as non-specific. It recruits immune cells in the infected area and releases specific chemical mediators called cytokines, which regulate immunity, inflammation, and hematopoiesis. They release especially white blood cells to identify and remove foreign substances. As we can see in the image, monocytes are special white blood cells and are macrophage. Thus, macrophage remove foreign substance present in organs, tissue, blood, and lymph, then acts as physical and chemical barriers to infection agents. The physical barriers are between the innate and adaptive immune system. Physical barriers have evolved through mutation, natural selection, and adaptation. Physical barriers are our first defense against disease and foreign bacteria that come against vertebrate animals. Physical barriers can be in many forms. It will be skin that prevents the entry, solid tears that provide antibacterial enzymes, mucus that lion traps dirt and microbes, stomach acid that have a low pH kills and harmful microbes. Those lines have the individual line of mutation, function, and physiology. Now I'm gonna talk about one specific barrier, the skin. The skin is the largest organ that the immune system has, and it is the first defense against foreign disease. The skin is very adaptable to its environment. The skin consists of 5 different layers, and the surface layers have the specific defensive cells such as antibodies. Antibodies recognize the antigen and remove them from the body. Most cells contain histamine. Histamine makes the skin swell and contain signaling chemicals which activate the immune system. At the contact site, the skin swells and becomes red. When the blood vessels open, they leak fluid from the blood vessel and lymph vessels into the tissue, as we can see in this image. The adaptive defense is when the pathogen passes through the first line of defense, there is a second line, which is more encounter antigen and develop memory for each antigen exposure. Also known as a specific immune system, known as adaptive, learn to recognize the specific pathogens, defend, learn and recognize by producing antibodies and memory B cells. Also, they produce T cells. T cells are a type of lymphocytes. They help to recognize different antigens and differentiate them from harmful antigens. T cells have different types. Killer T cells kills antigens by preferring holes and inserting an enzyme in the antigen. Helper T cells help to activate killer T cells or trigger macrophages. Then macrophages can ingest infected cells. Also, they produce B cells. B cells are memory cells and effector cells. Effector cells can be antibodies, and antibodies are specialized cells, and their function is to attack, ingest, inactivate, recognize antigens, and phagocytes. They also don't allow bacteria to release toxic ingredients. When the antigen attacks, the antibodies attach to form an immune complex. This attachment helps to recognize and phagocyte the invaders. For the memory B cells, we have memory response. The primary response is the first encounter with the pathogen. Then plasma cells release antibodies and T cells increase. As B cells and T cells mature, naive population differentiates them between the antigen specificities. A memory cells is an antigen-specific B or T lymphocytes and persists in circulation. The secondary response consists of following contact with the same antigen. B cells clones increase and respond effectively against the same antigen. One example of memory response are vaccines. Vaccine acts as a memory response through B cells and their antibodies. When there is a vaccination, B cells collect the vaccine and begin making antibodies and memory cells against it. If there is an infection, B cells with their certain antibodies will be activated and fight against it. Now I'm going to talk about the evolution of the immune system. The immunological memory response from the vertebrate is critical in the evolution pathway because it provides resistance to previous infections and helps to protect from harmful environment. Genes are responsible for the production of host defense in a specific disease. The innate immune system works by using recognizing receptors and are encoded in genome as separate genes. The adaptive receptors are randomly encoded into gene segments and barrier receptors of T and B cells. Innate and adaptive immune system works together. In order for B cells and T cells to activate, they need receptors from the innate system to trigger them. First, they defeat pathogens, then deflect and secrete phagocytic cells to protect the body. Subsequently, specialized antibodies from the adaptive immune system attack and destroy the foreign microorganisms. Evolution of the innate immune system. All vertebrates in their blood have phagocytic cells, which can be the ancestor of macrophages, as we can see in the image. An evolutionary neurotiny, which is retained of genetic traits, macrophages are involved in the origin of dendritic cells and lymphocytes. Through evolution, the top pathway in macrophages recognize the pathogen. Then, especially blood cells and their antibodies are molded by evolution to act effectively against the pathogen. Evolution of the adaptive immune response. The origin of adaptive immunity is the invasion of immunoglobulin retroposon gene. This ancestral gene can generate diversity and integrate into the host DNA. The retroposon has positive selection and has an advantage for the organism to express a somatic regulating receptor. This receptor supports the signaling machinery and gene rearrangement. When rearrangement helps to create variable antigen receptors and clonal selection. And that's how we have macrophages, dendritic cells, and B cells. In conclusion, pathogens have evolved and have developed innovative strategies to block immune response, such as deactivating host defense, disguising as host cells, or changing their surface molecules. The origin of a pathogen results from the evolution of a harmless commensal. Then they rapidly reproduce with mutation, horizontal gene transfer, or gene combination. Those changes let the pathogen permit to attack and filter the immune defense cells. The evolution of immunity has been driven by those changes directly through natural selection and their co-evolutionary arms race with pathogens. Also, immunity is a macroevolutionary process with different diversification and modification, in particular in antigen receptor genes, cell surface receptors, and the production of antibodies that destroy the pathogen or prevents the damaging of the cells. So the immune system isn't indispensable to survive and to attack pathogens, also to have better strategies.